everybody. Can you hear me? All right. So I'm going to talk about cross-channel experience. Just real quickly, kind of brief summary of me. This is all true. I actually am nominated. If you want to go vote, you can. It's kind of a joke. But you can find me on Twitter at NickF. I'm a user experience evangelist at Blink. And essentially what that means is I do a lot of marketing and sales. I also deliver training and kind of help be the public face of Blink Interactive. For this session, what I'm actually going to use is the hashtag XChannel. So if you want to tweet about this session, this would be the best way for me to be able to follow it instead of having to use my name in the tweet or whatever to make sure that I see it. So in the world of marketing, one of my jobs is to find out like some of the best user experience conferences out there to go to, and ones that are the most meaningful, have the best content. And I did a lot of extensive research on this. I actually researched about 500 UX conferences. If you could believe, there's actually 500 of them out there, 550 more or less. And out of all that research, some of it a little bit more scientific, like surveys, right? A little bit more formalized. Less formal also, like Twitter, asking people, just Quora posts, that kind of stuff. And out of all those conferences that we researched, 550 conferences, we found out that UXLx is actually the best conference to go to. So when I say, I don't know if anybody follows me on Twitter, but if you saw my tweet earlier this morning as the sun was coming up, I made this statement, which is true because everybody seems to describe UXLx with the word awesome in it. So I thought that was kind of cool. That was the most common word to describe the conference in the surveys that we took. So I'm just going to say out front that this is going to be kind of a little bit of a US-centric talk. So if there's things that don't make sense, I'll try to explain them as best I can. But just kind of fair warning there. And I'm also a little bit jet-lagged. So there's humor in this talk. And because I'm jet-lagged, I think it might actually sound better to me than it does to you. But we'll see how this goes. So the overview, just to kind of give a kind of recap of what I'm going to go through, or a kind of overview of what I'm going to go through here in the talk. We're going to go through some definitions, some methods, tools, and examples. I might not be able to get through all my examples in order to have some time for Q&A at the end. But the main thing that you need to know, if you're going to write anything down about this talk, it's going to be this number, 9%. 9% what? What does that mean? Well, what I found out is 90% of businesses state that cross-channel experience, the cross-channel experience, is critical to the business success. Critical. So we talked, earlier talked about kind of breaking down silos and this kind of looking to the kind of broader, view of everything that's going on with inside of a business. And this is sort of what I'm talking about. Cross-channel experience design. What does that mean? Well, to me, it's the process of designing for all the touch points a person has with a business, regardless of the channel. Channel is kind of a marketing word, right? So that kind of comes from the customer experience side of things. User experience, the original roots of it used to be about everything, not just like what was on the screen, but everything that happens when somebody's using something. So that could be a physical space or a product. And service design is something that looks at companies like airlines and how they go through their whole process of getting somebody booked, including on-screen experience. So am I not just talking about, when I say cross-channel, about all these things? Is that not just the same thing, essentially? And the answer is yes. I'm talking about all these things, all three of them. When I say cross-channel experience, I mean, I'm talking about service design. I'm talking about customer experience from the marketing world. I'm talking about user experience from what we do, right? So why is this important? Who cares, right? What is this cross-channel? Why should we care, right? So 70% of U.S. online customers research a product, or U.S. online customers research a product online and then purchase them offline. So if you think about that in terms of you have an e-commerce website, and you have maybe brick and mortar type company that sells products in the store. 70% research them ahead of time. Okay, this is something to think about. 65% of search visitors are looking for further information on something they saw in another channel. So your company put out a television commercial, a radio spot. They go on Google, and they look for that material. They look for information about that product on the website, or whatever Google pulls up, right? 53% of mobile searches on Bing have local intent, meaning 53% of what Bing is tracking is saying that they're looking for some company, a service, a product, something offered within inside of a regional area. So in this case, maybe Lisbon or something like that, right? These are numbers that are given to me. I didn't do this research. This is stuff that's out there on the web that you can find out about. So there's 3 types of touch points that kind of bridge all these gaps together. First one is static touch points. So this is physical products. This is hardware. This is rubber. This is plastic. This is glass. This is the stuff that you can physically pick up and touch. Okay? It's also things like books, magazines, newspapers, flyers, brochures, mailers, things that are sent out, kind of done once and shipped, right? There's no changing. It's not necessarily dynamic. In some cases it might be, but in most cases it's usually not. There's interactive touch points, right? You have your website. That's the most common one, right? Things like Twitter is also considered an interactive touch point. And then, the operating system, the software, the stuff that runs on that plastic and rubber and whatever it might be. It's also human touch points. So every employee inside of a business that has a contact with a user is basically a touch point themselves. Customer service rep is a touch point. The salesperson on the sales floor is a touch point. The person on tech support, when you call up tech support on the other end, is a touch point. Even the system you actually use to navigate to that tech support person, press 5 to get this person, that sort of system is actually a touch point in itself. Maybe a little bit more of an interactive one than actual human touch point, but it is a touch point. So you might think of your work in the context of channels. You might think of what you do is in the web channel or the mobile channel or something like that. And the marketing channel, as kind of Lou was pointing out, is like a different silo. It's some other group. And the analytics or the search channel is something completely different. The retail space, man, they're in a different building across campus, right? Customers don't. They don't care. They don't think about it in those terms. They don't think about it in terms of logistics, what's available, how long it takes to get a product from the warehouse to their doorstep. What they care about is getting that product and getting good quality products, getting it on time according to what was estimated, and they think about everything that they have to interact with, whether it's the call center people, whether it's the sales rep, the people in the store, the physical product itself. All those are touch points. They just think of it as your business. So if you're failing in one area, you're actually having an impact across your business, across all the channels. So how do we craft a good experience across channel? There's a couple methods behind this, and I'm going to go through them kind of quickly. But the simple one is observe how people use it. Now, I don't mean, send your product out into the wild, throw it over the internet, give them like some sort of survey where they could kind of check boxes and point to things, circle objects on the screen, click or not click, that sort of stuff. That's not actually observing how people are really using it. I mean, sit down in their homes and watch them use it. Watch them pick up the product. Watch them in the retail store decide what product they want to pick. Actually observe that behavior firsthand. Know the context of use. So when I say sit down in their homes, I mean, how does this product actually work inside of their homes? We did a big study on Connect and watched 200 households in 6 countries use Connect. What was it like to set up something that they've never interfaced with before? That the Connect kind of physical, your body is the controller sort of idea had never crossed their minds, and here they are setting up a product they're not even familiar with yet because it hadn't been released yet. What was the context around that? What were the challenges that we ran into as far as the environmental setup, as far as how they interacted, the different cultural aspects? All that comes into play. And when you're doing that, attention to detail counts, right? What is it that's going on here? You observe somebody setting up a piece of product of some sort, and something goes wrong. What really happened there? Observe what the actual core root of the problem, not the symptom, but the actual root of the problem is. In a lot of cases, it might actually have something to do with packaging and how the instructions are written or how the product is actually packed and connected together before actual setup. All that has an impact on the entire experience and therefore the entire impression that that person has with that company. So in addition to attention for details, look for hacks. So this is the Blink coffee maker. It sits at our office, this incredibly expensive coffee maker. And you can see here, there's a manual in the background. There's instructions on how to kind of clean and maintain it. And then over here is the original printed instructions with the dials and all that sort of stuff. And then our handwritten, somebody went in there with like some sort of Sharpie type thing and wrote in what it actually meant in terms of not an icon, but actual like readable text. This is a triple, this is a double, 2 cups, 1 cup. They did this because they want their product to be international. So they only could build one product and it would work for wherever they shipped it to. Obviously, there's some problems there. This is a hack. This is evidence that something isn't quite working right. That iconography you thought was so great that you spent all those months researching so that you could have one product shipped to all these different countries and you wouldn't have to worry about the different variations of it, isn't working. So follow the whole engagement then, right? You want to follow it from not just the experience of the typical engagement, like what happens when somebody's in front of their computer using your product or service or whatever, viewing, watching that video or whatever. Follow the whole engagement all the way through to the last point of where they're interacting with your business. Follow all the way through to, in the case of Netflix, as Lou pointed out earlier, when they ship the DVD back or when they are done with that movie that they just watched online. Learn the business process. What happens behind the scenes? Why is it that certain things are done certain ways? Why is it that when a customer calls up and they need this help and they call up this number, they actually have to hang up, the person will actually advise them to hang up and call a different number? Why is that? Why are those silos there? How can that be easier for that customer to make that transition so they don't have to call back? Why is it when I call up the bank and they ask me to type in my number for my account, and then 10 seconds later, a rep asks me for the same number? Why is that? How does the system work in the back end? Understand how employees work. What's their configuration like? What's their desk? What's their environment like? How do they operate on the physical product level? Understand that there might be some standards that have been put in place by the company about how things should be set up and how the workstation should be done. And notice when people deviate from that. Notice when they make changes. What are those changes? Did they improve the process or did they make it worse? Can those changes be implemented across the entire company? Would it be more efficient for the company to have that change implemented? So then there's tools, right? This is kind of a simple way to dice up the tools for cross-channel experience. And the best way to describe that is in terms of the different characteristics within inside these tools. And one of them is they always have the audience in mind. They always have some aspect within these tools of how to create a better cross-channel experience. They always have that audience member there. That's the customer, that's the user, that's the person who's interacting with your business. It might not necessarily be the person who buys it, who actually puts the cash down. It might be another business. There might be a middleman somewhere in there. But that's always represented. It's also this idea of onstage. Much like I'm on stage here, there's sort of an onstage to your business, right? That's what's exposed to the audience, to those customers, to those users. What's out in the forefront for them? What do they see? When they walk into your office, what's the first thing they see? Do they see a whole bunch of industrial machines and things going on in the background, or do they see a nice clean reception area and everything's kind of hidden behind the scenes? What's that experience like? So aside from on stage, then we have, of course, backstage, right? Where sort of the magic happens. If anybody's seen Wizard of Oz, hopefully, maybe that's a cultural reference, I don't know. But sort of the man behind the curtain. What happens behind where the customer has been exposed, what they've been exposed to. And it's not just like the people and the individuals on that side of it. That's the crew and everything, getting everything ready to make a seamless experience on the front end, on the front stage. But it's also the products and the sort of systems and processes that happen behind the scenes, the things that you don't see, the things that might be kind of gnarly and nasty looking, but they get things done, right? These are the servers, these are the internal time tracking systems, these are the CRMs, these are the content management systems of the world, right? These are the things that happen behind the stage that customer doesn't interact with, but your business does, and that's a core part of the process. So one example of these things is a customer journey map. It's probably the most simple and straightforward. It's literally telling a story about a specific customer's journey through the entire system, what things they encountered along the way. Now, you could get really crazy with this stuff and create a customer journey for every type of experience out there. So this person had the product already and is buying a second one. This other person has never bought the product before. This person has 5 of them at home and is buying a 6th one. And this person is having some sort of technical problem with the product. Those are all different kinds of journeys that a customer might have. They could all be actually applied into the same journey if you wanted to. So then there's experience map. It's kind of more about the flow of the engagement, how people think about your product and the early stages of, maybe they've done some research and they're kind of trying to figure out whether this product is going to work for their needs or not. Or maybe they've already done that research and now they're just kind of looking for the best price. These are kind of the sort of experience engagements as you go through the process. And it could be kind of a little bit messy here. This one's from Nform. Then there's a service blueprint. And the service blueprint is basically just mapping how the physical service or the service itself works, whether it's physical or digital. It goes from the kind of public scene, sort of here's something that's been initiated, maybe somebody tweeted something. In this case, it's just actually, all this is just about Twitter, a Twitter experience from a marketing perspective. Now, of all these 3 deliverables I just showed, every single one of them has this concept of, from the top, you have the kind of public, audience, customer-facing side of things. Kind of in the middle, in white there, is sort of the front stage, the customer service reps, the salespeople. In this gray line, that gray line, once you start getting to that gray shaded area at the bottom, you start going behind the scenes. So this is not something that's exposed to the customer, to the user. And these are the individuals, that the IT managers and whoever needs to make things happen on the back end. And then down at the very bottom, you have the systems and processes, mechanics of CRMs, all that sort of stuff, churning away and cranking out information and allowing people to do their jobs better, hopefully. So let's go through some examples. First one is Netflix. So we kind of already talked a little bit about Netflix here, Lou did. So hopefully you have some understanding that it's basically online and CD-based movie viewing service. So one of the most common things is I want to watch a movie, so I go search for it on Netflix and I add it to my queue, right? In this case, I'm actually adding a DVD. And it's something dark side, because who doesn't want to watch something dark side, right? So I add it to my queue, and once it's ready to ship, I get this little email. It says, hey, it's about ready to ship. Here's when you can expect to get it. So this is something that's like going out of its way to kind of tell me, a system that's happening in the back end, it's probably automated, is kind of telling me like, hey, here's what's going on. From there, the DVD arrives in the mail, right? It's sort of just like magic. I did something online, and here it is in my hand. Well, there's obviously a lot of business process that happened in the back end that I wasn't maybe fully aware of. Showed it in some of my previous slides. So now I have the DVD. Well, what happens if that DVD is cracked in half? It's happened before to me. What if it's scratched, right? It's a pretty common thing. What if it's the wrong DVD? What if somebody sent me the other version of Robot Chicken or whatever it might have been? Okay, I could tell them something went wrong because I could go into the website, look at my queue, see the movie in my queue saying it's at my house, and I actually click a little link and it'll give me this sort of option where I could kind of tell them and communicate to them what's the problem. The other thing is so when I say it goes flawlessly and I send them back the DVD, they actually confirm with me that they actually got it back. Another point of engagement to kind of remind me, hey, do you also want to rate the movie too? Right? Going back to the site, see if they want to add some more stuff too. But this is kind of a good way to kind of cue me in, some evidence that things worked as planned. So in addition to the standard like mailed DVD, there's also streaming, right? Netflix offers streaming. So I could go and watch a movie and stream it onto my laptop, right? Pretty straightforward service, assuming I have a decent broadband connection. I don't know if anybody's seen Full Metal Jacket. This is relatively one of my favorite scenes, just because of the dialogue that happens here, if anybody remembers that one. And so once I've watched it on my laptop, or maybe I'm halfway through it. Maybe I'm not finished with watching it on my laptop, and I decide, maybe I need to go run to the store or whatever because it's closing at a certain hour. So I have to stop that. I have to pause it or whatever. I leave. Maybe I closed out of my browser, didn't think about it or whatever. When I go back to the web, I could resume it. So it's smart enough to know that I've only watched the movie halfway through and resume it exactly or roughly where I left off, usually kind of a few seconds before that. So that's a nice feature to have. It's kind of aware of the context of where I'm at. I can also review it. I can also watch it from an app. So say now I'm at the store and I'm waiting in a very long line or something like that, or I'm doing errands and I'm just kind of waiting to have some time to kill. I can actually just load up my iPhone app. Even though I left it on my laptop in pause mode, I can actually load it on my iPhone app and resume. So now it's going cross-platform, right? I just went from a laptop or a desktop or whatever it might have been at home to an iPhone. And I could do it in my Xbox, my tablet, my smartphone, laptop, and my actual TV has its own app store, so I could do it there too, right? I could resume this in all those different contexts flawlessly. There's no challenge with me having to go back in, add it to a queue in a different app, and the apps all talk to each other. It's all synchronized. So the nice thing is as we know with broadband streaming, there's always problems, right? If you don't have a really good, solid connection, and even when you do, sometimes there's just, whatever that day just happens to be heavy traffic day. And so your movie maybe has a couple hiccups. It starts to rebuffer maybe once or twice. They actually not only do they basically tell me what happened there, they ask me about my experience because they know that something may not have gone right, or maybe you're reviewing it at a lower bit rate or whatever it might have been than what you should have been based on your past viewing of Netflix movies. The other cool thing is they actually compensate me ahead of time. So they know that basically I stopped the movie halfway and it had a whole bunch of rebuffering issues because they're tracking all this. This is all data being stored and kind of harvested on their servers, so to speak, about my viewing of this movie. So now they go in and they say, you know what, we know you've had a problem, I'm pretty sure, and we're going to compensate you. If you in fact had a problem, click on this link and you'll get your compensation, whether it's like a gift card or a credit or a free DVD or extra DVD or whatever it might be. So being proactive about it. And this is before I even finished watching the movie or whatever. I could also tell them when something went wrong, right? I could go back into the website just like I can with the normal standard DVD. So cross-channel touch points here is web. There's an email interaction going on there. Physical packaging when you include the product itself in the disc that comes in the mail, and the actual product of the DVD itself. Streaming media, and mobile. These are all cross-platform, cross-channel sort of experiences. Another example, REI. So I wanted to get a mountain bike. I wanted to go out and live off some pretty good, awesome trails in Seattle, and I wanted to be able to go and ride a mountain bike. So I did research online, like we saw in the statistics of people that research stuff online before they buy in a store. So how many people here can tell me where the moneymaker button is on this screen? Anybody want to take a go at it? Just kind of holler it out. Holler out what you see on the button that is the moneymaker on the screen. Add the cart. Add the cart, right? So this little orange button up here, can't quite reach it, but that is the main moneymaker. It's actually not true. The moneymaker is right here. This little white button that says Find in Store. Because the context is a bike. I'm going to go and buy a bike. I'm not going to actually just go, you know what, I did some research and I think I'm pretty satisfied with the results and I'm just going to go and order it and have it delivered to me. Probably not going to happen for a bicycle. And for a lot of equipment that REI sells, it's probably not going to happen. I'm going to need to be looking at that equipment in the store, holding it up, feeling how it weighs, sitting on it, making sure it's the right fit, the whole 9 yards. I'm going to go into the store. So this gives me a button that gives me this experience once I click on it of, guess what, all the stores in my area and where it's available. So in here, I'm not going to go to Alderwood because the product's not available, but I noticed that it's available at the Seattle flagship store, so I'm going to go into the Seattle store to check out the bike. So I take a trip down to the Seattle store, and man, they have just thousands of bikes all over the place. I mean, it's insane. So I thought I had an idea of what bike it was that I wanted, but once I went in the store, the sales rep was actually able to advise me based on the kind of bike that I had kind of earmarked, so to speak, online, some other reasonable suggestions, maybe a variation in price or maybe a variation in functionality but same price that I can look at. Now, once I've kind of narrowed it down to maybe the top 3 candidates, REI can actually try the bike out at the store. They have a trail at the store where I can ride the bike and see how it performs. Now, this may not be true to the actual experience I might have if I'm out, you know, in the Great Northwest riding this down some trails and maybe breaking some bones in the process, but it's a pretty significant trail and it works pretty well. This is, again, thinking about the context. What is it that we need to do to sell a bike, right? And applying those kind of attributes. So cross-town touch points again, web, retail, product, sales support, in the case of the rep in the store, and the physical environment, right? The environment of being able to do that test on the trail. Another example I'm going to use is Comcast. So I heard this, this series is coming out, or show, called Game of Thrones. So I wanted to watch it. So I decided I wanted to add HBO to my lineup. Now, I'm not sure what the equivalent of Comcast is here, but it's basically a cable provider, a TV provider on cable. HBO has this thing called this show called Game of Thrones. And so I decided I was going to go to the website, and I'm going through the website, and I cannot find out for the life of me how to add just one channel to my lineup. Now, they have some very smart people that are probably already aware of this problem, that are probably already working on how to solve this problem. But the only thing I get from the website is a lot of, buy this package, buy this service, you know, and it's like 100 channels grouped together. And the only other options are buy multiple services, like the phone and the video and all the, you know, internet and everything else as a bundle. There's no way to actually buy a single show or a single channel on the website, at least from my experience, what I could find, there wasn't a way. When I go to the website to ask for help, when I get to that functionality and it kind of guides me through that experience of how to add a channel, it basically says, call up this number. And there's a click to chat, but I can't click to chat to add a channel because for some reason, there's not a way to do that through click to chat because there's services on the back end. Oh, well, you know, you need to add a channel. You need to talk to a whole different group. Click to chat people just help people online. Completely different silo. So start thinking about online, helping people online. Wait a second. I've heard that actually on Twitter, Comcast is pretty good to engage with. So I did a few tweets, and I talked to Bill, Comcast Bill. This guy rocks, actually. Probably has a really difficult job, but it's a pretty amazing job, and he's been able to pull it off pretty well. I had a conversation with him, and HBO was basically added in no time. I mean, I cut a few things out of here of us talking about Star Wars and things like that, but essentially it happened in a few minutes, and most of the delay in this time stream, you can see here it started at 11:14 and ended at 11:31, was because I stepped away from my computer. It would have actually been faster if I was just at my computer the entire time and responding to this person over Twitter, and it was done. And like that, HBO was on my TV. Didn't have to think about it. Now, of course, they're also going cross-channel, too, in other ways, and they have HBO Go, and now I could go and see it on my laptop if I wanted to, if I'm a HBO subscriber. So now there's more than one way to view the video, just like there is like with Netflix. So the cross-channel touch points here: web, click-to-chat, social media, broadcast media. So this is all great, right? This is all like breaking down silos. This is all getting businesses to talk to each other, understanding the customer experience, the flow that the individuals have on the front end, and getting through that whole process and making it seamless, right? So that they don't have any challenges along the way, so that they don't experience hiccups in that process, so that they aren't inconvenienced by calling in another number or entering the same number for an account more than once. How do you get all this to happen, right? Has to do with business, right? Has to do with your boss, right? Now, we all wish our boss was David, right? No? Nobody wishes? But it's not. It's you know, and maybe I'm wrong on this character guess here, but I'm thinking it's more like Neil, right? Somebody you need to convince, somebody you need to show numbers to, somebody you need to kind of justify rationale to of why they should invest all this money to have you kind of cruising around the company and figuring out where there's broken parts, right? So there needs to be some sort of solid justification there. You have to convince the business owners, the decision makers, the stakeholders. And as kind of Lou already pointed out, we can't really solve these problems going forward by thinking of ways that we've done things in the past, right? We're just not going to get there. We can't think about, because that's where we're at, right? We're where we're at because of how everything was done in the past. So now we need to start thinking about how things should be in the future and work kind of backwards to where we're at and figure out the path to get there, right? It's not easy. That's strategy, right? That's vision. Well, there's a couple things we could do, right? As Lou already said, we need to break down the silos, right? Blow those suckers up. Put some TNT on them and blow them up. It means going out there and, as Samantha at REI does, sit in that other cafeteria, like Lou mentioned. Or perhaps that's actually visiting the warehouse. We talked about like watching that experience behind the scenes, you know, not just what the customer experiences, because we could do that all day and night. That's what we're really good at. But watching them as they interact with this thing behind the scenes. Let's cross-pollinate. Marketers need to start talking to user experience people. User experience people need to start talking to marketers. Salespeople need to start talking with both. Developers and designers need to start working together. We all need to collaborate on this. We're ever going to get out of this concept of, oh, well, you know, this customer engaged with the website, did these 5 things, and then clicked on help, and there was a number displayed to them, and that's all we know. That's all that happened. Because that's what our project was, is to fix the website. How are we going to ever know there's those challenges across channel? How are we ever going to know that when they called up the number, they had 5 options and none of them were what they were looking for? This is cross-pollination, right? We need to understand how the whole system works. We need to watch users use it. We need to talk to each other about, in other departments, other groups, other buildings, go to other campuses, and sit there and work with those individuals to kind of understand what their challenges are, so that when you're doing your part, maybe it's the website, maybe it's the mobile site, whatever it might be, that you're solving these problems with them. So we really need to work more like a hive, right? We need to kind of have like a queen bee that kind of helps direct everything, but we all need to work and build things together and have a common vision. You know, we're building a hive together. That's the goal. That's the goal of business. That's the strategy behind it all. A unified vision. So when you think about bicyclists, a lot of people like that maybe aren't informed about bicycle racing will look at this and see that, gosh, there's a whole bunch of people from one team that are all racing to the finish line. You know, what happens if, you know, this guy gets first and this guy gets second? Well, that's, you know, maybe that's a win in all cases, right? A lot of people look at it as individual people racing. No, this is a team. They work as a pack. They help each other out. When one starts falling behind, the team moves to work with that challenge. When one starts getting ahead, they try to figure out a solution for that problem. When another competing team comes in, they figure out how to position themselves to work with that or against that. It's together. It's not separated. It's a pack. And that's what we need to be doing cross-channel. Thank you. So I'm told I cannot sit on the couch because some people can't see me in the back. I thought about standing on the couch, but I'll just stand in front of it. Anybody have any questions? Questions? Question over here.
Hi, thanks for the talk. I guess my question is about change management, and I'm not sure if that's something that you come up against a lot as a consultant, but whether you might be able to share any of the strategies or tactics you have for helping or persuading organizations to move towards change.
So there's a couple interesting tactics behind that. The biggest challenge as an agency is how do you sell that? You know, like, is that like really a line item on your invoice? Is that really something that's in your proposal? You know, how do you identify that kind of concept? Because maybe you could tell that's one of their challenges ahead of time before you jump into a project. Now, in-house, there's also challenges too. And there's kind of one thought that I like to do sometimes is allow them to fail. So we're all afraid of failing sometimes. We get so caught up in producing something that's just perfect right out of the gate. And what we forget is that there needs to be understanding of the failure that got us there, you know. And that doesn't necessarily mean fail in public and, you know, do a face plant right in front of, you know, like here diving off stage or something, right? It means that you need to watch businesses make those decisions, those bad decisions sometimes, to learn from them, to come back to you and realize, you know what? Remember a year ago when you said that's a really bad idea and we did it anyway? Guess what? It was a bad idea. So it takes them some time to do that. You know, you can't just have change overnight. You know, businesses don't just adapt overnight. There might be something that might inspire a CEO. And even if top down the CEO says, damn it, tomorrow we're going to do it X way now. Guess what? That's going to take a long time and a lot of manpower to move there. So change is more of a slow progression, small battles instead of giant wars, right? And it's tough to sell, but sometimes failure can help drive that process. I like to show them evidence by doing that research. You know, spending, like, even if I don't have that project, I haven't landed the project to do and fix that cross-channel experience, I like to just spend my own free time and do that research, take those videos of users struggling with something, and going through and crunching the analytics and showing them the numbers of lack of purchases or whatever it might have been because of an experience. And when that executive watches those videos and when they see those numbers and they see those dollars, different bells start to ring as far as change goes. Competitors start changing. That's another driver, right? So you might be the best at what you do, but tomorrow a new company starts up and they don't have all the baggage and history that your company has, and they start up and they say, we're going to do it X way. That's a pretty compelling factor as far as not necessarily that they're doing it right and not necessarily that they're going to succeed or fail doing that, but to understand what they're doing and why they did something differently and look at it and evaluate it and see if it's more effective and doing that research. So I don't know if that really answers your question, but you know, I find myself in that position more often than not. And I think Lou's point earlier was, I think we find ourselves in that position a lot more than we care to want to be in. You know, instead of being people who, you know, whatever they might simplify down our jobs to wireframes or something like that, we're actually talking about business change. And when I get assigned a project, I don't just think about, oh, you know, we're designing a UI screen for the back of, you know, touch screen-based UI for an airline, and think about just the box of what I'm, you know, that actual screen. You know, you have to think beyond that, right? You have to look at, well, gee, this is a touch screen. It's on the back of a seat, and seats recline. So when people hit that touch screen, if it's not that sensitive, the people sitting on the seat in front are going to get this whack in the back of the head every so often. You wouldn't know that unless you observed that experience, right? So you have to kind of show them. You have to kind of show them the evidence. I found video is very powerful, and so are dollars. And dollars map to numbers, to actual metrics, not made-up stuff. I don't know if that helps answer your question. Next question you've had. Oh, nope. No more questions, I guess. Come see me after.